Sir, please, save my mother. She has only days to live. A child's shrill cry cut through the roar of the presidential motorcade. The guards immediately tensed, their dark glassed eyes scanning the street. We need to move on now, sir, the chief of security insisted. But Vice President Vance was already rolling down the window of the armored Cadillac, his gaze riveted on the small figure holding the cardboard. Sometimes one stop can change 1,000 lives, Vance said quietly. Stop the car, now. The most interesting part is coming. Stay with us to find out how it all ends. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't lose it. The scorching sun beat down mercilessly on the bustling streets of the city. The honking of cars and the hurried steps of passers-by merged into the chaotic rhythm of city life. Leading the long motorcade, Vice President Vance's Cadillac One moved smoothly along the clogged avenues, a symbol of power, attracting the curious glances of passers-by. Inside the lead car, Vance listened intently to a report from one of his advisors, his deep blue eyes usually radiating calm confidence. Today betrayed fatigue after a sleepless night spent preparing an important bill. Mr. Vice President, according to the latest information. The advisor continued to read the report monotonously, but Vance's attention was suddenly drawn to an unusual sight on the sidewalk. A frail girl, no older than 10, stood silently among the stream of moving people. In her small hands was a tattered piece of cardboard with hastily scrawled but clear words. Please help. My family desperately needs a miracle. Vance leaned toward the window, his brow furrowed slightly. The girl was dressed in a faded gray sweatshirt, her tangled hair partially obscuring her face, which was smeared with dirt. Her blue eyes were wide and focused on the passing cars, as if searching for a glimmer of hope in a cold, indifferent world. Stop the car, Vance ordered, his voice firm but calm. The motorcade screeched to a halt, causing the cars following behind to jerk. Inside the car, the advisors and security personnel exchanged puzzled glances, shocked by the unexpected order. Sir, this area is unsafe. We should continue on our route, one of the bodyguards said cautiously, his hand instinctively going to his holster. No, Vance interrupted, his gaze fixed on the small figure on the sidewalk. I want to know this girl's story. No one dared to object. There was that note of authority in his voice that everyone had learned to recognize over the years of his service to the country. Vance opened the car door and stepped out, instantly drawing curious glances from the crowd. Several people recognized him and quickly pulled out their phones to record him. The air seemed to freeze as he walked toward the little girl, leaning slightly to meet her gaze. Vance's expression softened, but his eyes didn't lose the piercing intensity that made people feel like he could see right through them. What is your name, dear? He asked, his voice soft but still commanding. The girl shuddered, her eyes darting nervously to the bodyguard standing nearby. His imposing figure in a dark suit and with an earpiece seemed to only increase her fear. My name is Lily, she replied, her small hands clutching the cardboard like a shield. Lily, why are you standing here? Vance continued, lowering his voice to reassure her. Lily bit her lip, her gaze flickering with a hint of fear before she gathered the courage to answer. I just want someone to help my mother. She's very sick. We don't have a home. My dad died in the war. Her voice trembled, but her wide eyes expressed a quiet determination that struck the vice president deep in his soul. Vance paused for a moment, his gaze softening, yet with a hint of deep thought. These words touched something personal, something buried deep in his own past. Where did your father serve? He asked softly, suddenly aware that he was holding the girl's hand in his. He couldn't remember when he had taken her hand, but now he didn't want to let go of that fragile palm, trembling in his own. In the Middle East, sir, Lily replied, her voice breaking and tears welling in her eyes. He was a soldier, a hero, but when he died, we lost everything. Lily's words hit Vance like a punch to the chest. He took a deep breath, straightened up, and turned to his entourage, his expression determined. Get the car ready. I want to see where Lily lives, he announced firmly, in a tone that brooked no argument. Sir, this is extremely dangerous. The bodyguard stepped forward, his voice quiet but insistent. We cannot guarantee your safety in that area. Think about the consequences if something happens to you. Vance turned to face him, his gaze steely and unwavering. If a child can stand on a busy street to save his mother, then I can risk going to where they live, he said with conviction. If you're afraid, you can stay here. The team fell silent. No one dared to protest any further. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the noise of passing cars and the muffled conversations of the gathered onlookers. Vance placed a strong, yet gentle hand on Lily's shoulder, his eyes filled with a determination that seemed like it could move mountains. Lead the way, Lily. Let's go meet your mother. Those simple words sounded like a promise that made the girl's heart beat faster and her eyes widen with a hope she hadn't felt in too long. The motorcade began to move slowly along the narrowing streets. The landscape changed. Glittering skyscrapers in luxury storefronts gave way to dilapidated buildings, sagging roofs and narrow alleys filled with garbage. With each turn of the car, the atmosphere became more oppressive, the air heavier. Inside the car, Lily sat quietly, her small hands resting nervously in her lap. Her eyes reflected a mixture of hope and anxiety, but the tightness of her lips betrayed her determination. She was not going to let this chance pass her by. "We're almost there, Mr. Vice President," she said quietly, pointing to a makeshift home tucked deep down a dimly lit alley. Vance nodded, his brow furrowing slightly. He understood now. This wasn't just a visit to a rough neighborhood. This was the beginning of a journey that would change not only Lily's life, but the lives of countless others like her. Cadillac One pulled up in front of a ramshackle house at the end of a trash-strewn alley. Its makeshift wooden door was made from old planks, and its rusty tin roof was riddled with holes that probably let water into the one room that served as shelter for Lily and her mother when it rained. Several children, their faces smeared with dirt, stood silently, their curious eyes glued to the luxurious cortege as if to a vision from another world. Vance stepped out of the car, his gaze sweeping over his poor surroundings. His stomach clenched painfully at the knowledge that this was happening in the richest country in the world. His security quickly formed into battle formation, scanning every shadow, every corner. Lily, her small hand firmly gripping his, led him to the front door and gently pushed open the rotting wood. "My mother's inside," she said quietly, her voice shaking slightly. "She hasn't been able to get up for 3 days now." Vance walked in, his eyes immediately drawn to the small bed in the corner where a frail woman lay. She was trying to sit up, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and alarm as the strangers filled the tiny space. "Mom, this is Vice President Vance," Lily said, her voice quiet but filled with hope. "He's here to help us." The woman looked up, her chapped lips trembling. "Mr. Vice President," she muttered, her voice uncertain, as if she wasn't sure if what she was seeing was real. Vance knelt down beside her and extended his hand. His eyes, always attentive to detail, noted the yellowness of her skin, the feverish glint in her eyes, and the difficulty she was breathing. He was no doctor, but he knew enough to know that she would not survive long without medical attention. "You don't have to say anything," he assured, his voice calm and warm. "Lily did a wonderful job bringing me here. I'd like to know your family history." The woman grabbed her daughter's thin hand, as if drawing strength from it. "My husband Daniel was a soldier," she began, her voice weak but confident. "He gave his life in the Middle East, leaving me and Lily behind. After he died, I got sick. I couldn't work anymore, and everything fell apart. We lost our home, our belongings, and now this is all we have left." Vance looked around the dimly lit house. Natural light barely filtered through the patched walls. A broken chair sat in one corner, its leg propped precariously, and old worn boxes, stacked on top of each other, served as makeshift storage. "My mother has been sick for a very long time," Lily said quietly, her voice barely audible. "I tried to help her, but I don't know what to do. I don't want her to die." Lily's words made Vance freeze for a moment. He stared into the little girl's worried eyes, her desperation cutting through the silence of the room like a scream he could physically feel in his chest. Turning to his retinue, he spoke with an unmistakable urgency that made everyone in the room sit up straight. "I want a full report on this family situation immediately. The mother's health must be assessed this evening," Vance ordered, his voice leaving no room for discussion. One of his advisors came closer and muttered, "Sir, this is a dangerous area. We shouldn't stay here too long. It would be better to let the specialized organizations deal with this. Let's call social services. Organize help from funds." Vance turned sharply, his expression determined, his face reflecting that rare expression his colleagues saw only at the most critical moments of national crises. "She doesn't want promises. She wants action," he snapped, hard and final. "I'm not leaving until I know we'll both get the help we need. Remember, the clock is ticking for this family, and we can't afford to waste time." He knelt down next to Lily, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Looking her straight in the eyes, he said with such powerful conviction that everyone in the room felt a shiver run down their spines. "Lily, you did something incredibly brave. You fought for your mother. Now it's my turn to fight for both of you. I swear to you, I won't let you down." The woman on the bed burst into tears, tears streaming down her sunken cheeks. "Mr. Vice President, thank you. I don't know what to say." Vance looked at her with a firm, compassionate gaze, and his next words sounded like an oath. "You don't have to say anything. Your husband gave his life for this country. That's a debt we owe your family. and I will personally see to it that that debt is paid. He turned to his chief assistant, who was silently writing down each instruction. Get a medical team ready immediately. I want the best liver specialist from the National Medical Center here within the hour. Contact the VA. I need her husband's full service history, all benefits and compensation. Find suitable temporary housing until we can figure out permanent housing. His assistant nodded rapidly, fingers flying across the tablet screen, recording each order. One more thing, Vance added, his voice even firmer. We're not leaving here until the doctors get here and check her out. I'm staying with Lily. As Vance emerged from the small, crumbling house, the atmosphere outside changed completely. More residents from the surrounding slums had gathered, their expressions transforming from skepticism to cautious optimism. Some stood at a distance, quietly watching, while children clung to each other, looking at him with admiration. Vance stood silently for a moment, his eyes scanning the poor surroundings, the crumbling houses, the alleys strewn with trash, and the faces carved with fatigue and despair. The advisor approached, his tone insistent. Sir, we need to leave immediately. This area is unsafe and your presence is attracting too much attention. If something happens, we won't be able to react in time. Vance turned to him, his gaze sharp and unwavering, and his words were such that everyone around him froze. I'm not here to attract attention. I'm here to take action. When Lily's mother gets the help she needs, then, and only then, will I leave this place. Sir, you can operate from your office, the advisor insisted, his voice tense. You can give orders, and we will send support teams to deal with this problem. Vance shook his head, cutting him off. If I leave now, it will mean one thing, that I do not want to face the reality of what is happening here. And do not forget, I am not doing this for convenience or PR. Another security agent approached, speaking in a hushed tone. Sir, a group of young men are gathering at the end of the alley. We don't know their intentions, but the situation could become dangerous. Vance glanced toward the alley where a small group of people stood, their expressions unreadable. He took a deep breath, then turned back to his team. Do your job and protect the territory, but I will not leave just because of fear. He sat down next to Lily, placing a gentle, comforting hand on her shoulder. Tell me about your neighbors, Lily. I need to know more about what's going on here. Lily hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I'll show you. Vance, Lily, and a few guards moved cautiously through the narrow alley. Eyes from doorways and windows watched them warily, curiosity mingling with distrust. A middle-aged man with a haggard face stood near the doorway of a dilapidated house. As Vance approached, the man stepped forward. Mr. Vice President, I can't believe you're actually here, the man said, his voice hoarse. But if you're here, you need to know. We're not just poor, we're forgotten. Nobody cares about us. Vance paused, his gaze steady as he listened. The man continued, his voice laced with both frustration and desperation. Most of us here are families of people who served this country, but no one sees the pain they left us with. My son had to drop out of school. We survive on what little we can scrape together, but it's never enough. Vance looked around at the crumbling buildings and tired faces, turning to one of his advisors, his voice cutting through the silence like steel. I want a full report on every family here, their needs, their struggles, and I want it on my desk by tomorrow morning. Sir, the advisor began cautiously, we could coordinate these efforts with local agencies. Vance interrupted him, his tone firm and unyielding. They've waited long enough. We won't delay any longer. If Lily can stand on a street corner asking for help, then we have no excuse not to act immediately. One of the residents shouted from the crowd, It's all for show. Once the cameras stop rolling, you'll forget about us like everyone else. The crowd roared with approval and angry cries. The situation was heating up, but instead of retreating, Vance stepped forward, raising his hand, calling for silence. I understand your skepticism, he said loudly and clearly, his voice echoing down the alley. I'm not asking you to trust my words, but I am asking you to trust my actions. He pointed to a small group of men in suits who had just stepped out of a black minivan, carrying medical bags. The doctors are already here. Today we start by helping one family. By tomorrow, I personally promise you that every family in this area will be interviewed, and their needs will be taken into account. Not in a month, not in a week. Tomorrow. The crowd fell silent, shocked not so much by his words as by the actual appearance of medical personnel who were already heading towards Lily's house. The crowd outside had grown considerably when Vance returned to the entrance of Lily's house. He walked up the worn, creaking steps, turning to face the sea of tired faces now watching him intently. No family, especially the family of someone who sacrificed everything for this country, should have to live like this, Vance declared, his voice booming through the silent alley. You've been forgotten, But that ends today. I promise you, I'll not only help Lily and her mother, but I'll help each and every one of you. Together, we'll change these conditions. A few scattered claps broke the silence, gradually building to a louder applause. Tears glistened in the eyes of some people in the crowd, and for the first time in years, a spark of hope lit in their gazes. Vance turned to Lily, leaning down slightly as he gently took her hand in his. In a soft but firm tone, he said, "Thank you for having the courage to speak out. You didn't just help your mother, you helped this entire community. I promise you I won't let you down." As he climbed into the waiting Cadillac 1, he paused before the door closed, turning to his chief of security. "This is my top priority from now on. I want all resources mobilized immediately. And remember, I will personally oversee every step of this initiative." When Vance returned to the White House that evening, instead of attending a scheduled reception, he called an emergency cabinet meeting. His usually impeccable suit was wrinkled and dusty, but his eyes were lit with a determination that made even the most cynical Washington veterans sit up straighter in their chairs. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vance began, his voice quiet but every word clear in the hushed room. "This afternoon, I witnessed things that should not exist in the United States of America in the 21st century. I saw the children of our nation's heroes living in poverty, mothers dying without medical care, and communities completely forgotten by the system they served." He paused, his piercing gaze sweeping around the room. "I will not engage in discussions of policies or procedures that only delay action. Effective immediately, I am launching the Hope for Heroes initiative. Secretary of State, I want emergency funds released. Secretary of Defense, review all records of benefits paid to families of fallen service members. I want to know where the system is failing. Secretary of Health, send mobile clinics to the area I visited today and begin mapping similar neighborhoods across the country." The ministers looked at each other. Some began to object. "Mr. Vice President, the budget for this quarter has already been allocated. The legal framework requires a more detailed study. The approval procedures will take at least 3 weeks." Vance slammed his palm down on the table with such force that the decanter of water jumped. "I'm not interested in your bureaucratic excuses." His voice boomed through the room. "While we sit here in air-conditioned offices discussing procedures, people are dying. A heroine named Lily, a 10-year-old girl, is standing in the street trying to save her dying mother while we talk about frameworks. This is unacceptable. It's shameful, and I won't tolerate it 1 minute longer." There was a deafening silence. No one dared to break it. "Each of you has 24 hours to present me with a concrete plan of action. Not a report, not an analysis, but an action plan. If you can't do it, find someone who can. I'll work all night, and I expect you to do the same." By the next morning, news of the Vice President's visit to the slum and the launch of the Hope for Heroes initiative had spread like wildfire across the country. A video of the moment Vance stopped his motorcade to talk to a little girl became a viral sensation on social media. The image of him holding Lily's hand as they entered the slum, without hesitation in the face of possible danger, deeply touched people from all walks of life. On Twitter, the hashtag #MasherHopeForHeroes began trending across the country. Thousands of people shared Lily's story, along with their own stories of sacrifice and hardship faced by veterans' families across the country. One comment, which received tens of thousands of likes, read, "Lily is not just a little girl. She has become a symbol for all the forgotten families. We can't turn our backs on them any longer." But the movement didn't stop with Lily's story. The Hope for Heroes initiative, launched by Vance, quickly became a nationwide campaign. Corporate support has poured in like a spring flood, with major companies like Amazon, Walmart, and Apple announcing multi-million-dollar donations to support the fund. One tech CEO said at a press conference, "What we saw yesterday was true leadership. Vice President Vance showed us what it means to face the truth, not to turn away. We are following his example." Leading nonprofit organizations across America have come together to provide specific support programs to veteran families in need. Individual donations from ordinary citizens poured into the fund, which was created in a matter of hours. A Texas teacher donated her entire annual bonus to help a veteran's family struggling to make ends meet. "Lily's story kept me crying all night," she wrote in a letter to the fund. "I knew I had to do something." The movement, fueled by Lily's courage and Vance's determination, has become a beacon of hope for thousands of families who have gone unnoticed for too long. Students at a California high school organized a school supply drive for veterans' children. "Lily could have been our classmate," said the 15-year-old organizer. "It hit us right in the heart." An Ohio veteran volunteered to renovate homes for struggling families in his community. "Lily's story inspired me," one volunteer shared in a television interview. "I want to do my part, no matter how small, to make a difference. Lily and her mother quickly became the center of national attention. They were invited to appear on major television programs to share their story and express gratitude to those who offered help. In one emotional interview, Lily's mother reflected with tears in her eyes, "I believed we would never have a chance at a normal life. I was preparing to die, leaving my little girl all alone in this world. But now I see hope not only for me and my daughter, but for so many other families like ours." Lily, sitting next to her mother in the studio, added with tears in her eyes, "I just wanted to save my mother. I didn't know something so wonderful could happen." Mr. Vice President said I was brave, but he is the real hero. The presenter, trying to contain his own emotions, asked, "What would you like to say to other children who are in a situation similar to yours?" Lily thought for a moment, then answered with a wisdom beyond her years, "Don't give up. Even if the whole world says no, all you need is one person to say yes. I believe there is that person for each of us." 2 days after first meeting Lily, Vance hosted a special event at the White House to honor veterans' families and recognize the organizations and individuals who have contributed to the Hope for Heroes campaign. The event symbolized not just a moment of celebration, but a commitment to building a better future for families across the country. In his address to the hundreds present, including representatives of all political parties, Vance spoke with a conviction that transcended all political differences. Lily is a brave little girl, and her story has changed the way we think about our responsibility to those who have sacrificed everything for this country. Today, we honor the families of veterans, but more importantly, we commit to ensuring that they never have to suffer in silence again. Vance called for continued public support. Each of us can do something, no matter how small, to help those in need. Together, let's build an America where no one is left behind. During the event, Lily and her mother were invited on stage. Dressed in a simple white dress, Lily hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice quiet but filled with conviction that made the entire room sit still. "I never thought that a little piece of cardboard could change anything. I just wanted to save my mother. But now I see that when we have the courage to stand up, we can change the whole world. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you to everyone who helped my family and many others." The audience erupted in thunderous applause, the sound echoing throughout the hall. Many in the crowd wiped away tears, deeply moved by the sincerity and courage of the young girl. The Hope for Heroes movement continued to expand beyond veterans' families to support other underserved communities. States across the country began implementing practical assistance programs modeled after the initiative. The television commentator noted, "For the first time in many years, we are seeing real unity." Hope for Heroes is more than just a movement. It is a resurgence of social responsibility and compassion. The movement not only gave Lily and her mother a new life, it brought hope to thousands of families across America. Vance knew the journey was far from over, and his resolve grew stronger, determined to ensure that no one was left behind. That evening, when Vance returned to his office after the event, his public relations advisor was waiting for him with a wide smile. "Sir, the administration's approval ratings have jumped 15% overnight. This is an unprecedented increase. The media wants to know if you are planning your own presidential campaign after this success?" Vance stopped, his gaze turning icy. "This isn't about ratings or campaigns," his voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "This is about people like Lily and her mother. If you don't understand that, you should find another job." The advisor turned pale and silently left the office. Vance went to the window, looking out at Washington, D.C., glowing in the evening light. His thoughts returned to the alley, to the crumbling buildings and lost eyes. But now he saw the first glimmers of hope there, too. His phone rang. It was the chief physician of the National Medical Center. "Mr. Vice President, I have news about Lily's mother." Vance gripped the phone tightly. "Speak." "Sir, her condition is critical. The kidney failure has progressed further than we thought. She needs a kidney transplant urgently, otherwise we will lose her." Vance felt his heart skip a beat. "How high is she on the waiting list?" There was a pause. "With her blood type, in current condition, maybe months of waiting. We don't have that much time." Vance closed his eyes, his mind racing. "Use all my connections immediately," he said decisively. "Contact every clinic, every lab, every medical center in the country. Find a donor. I need the results within 2 hours." "Mr. Vice President, even with your influence, the process of finding a donor usually takes—" "We don't have time for usual, doctor. This is an emergency. And give me a list of every person with a compatible blood type in the government. I'll call each one personally." "Sir, this is unprecedented. Diplomatic protocols, medical considerations. This is not a discussion, doctor. It is an order." 4 hours later at 2 a.m., Vance sat in a hospital corridor, feverishly working on the phone, coordinating the national search for a donor. His tie was loose, his sleeves were rolled up, and his eyes were red with fatigue. His chief of staff stood next to him, his face a picture of pure terror. "Sir, the administration is in a panic. The president has personally called twice. You can't shut down the government for one family. 5 departments working around the clock on your orders. That's insane." Vance looked up, his eyes burning with determination. "Tell the president that I am fulfilling my oath to protect and serve all Americans, especially those whom society has forgotten." "But sir, you are the Vice President of the United States. Your duties—" "I'm a father who lost a son in the same war as Lily's mother's husband," Vance said quietly, publicly addressing for the first time the personal tragedy he had always kept secret. "And if my son were alive, I'd want someone who fought as hard for his child." Sometimes leadership isn't just about giving orders, it's about setting an example with your actions. The phone in his hand rang. He grabbed it so hard his knuckles turned white. "Vance speaking." He listened to his interlocutor in silence, his face gradually changing from tension to disbelief, and finally to triumph. "Are you sure? Is it a 100% match? Prepare transport immediately." He hung up, and for the first time in hours he actually smiled. "We found a donor, a military surgeon from Boston. He's already flying here on a military plane." At that moment the door opened and a small figure slipped in. Lily, her eyes were red from crying, but her face was lit up with a hope that was almost unbearable to see. "Are you saving my mother?" she asked, her voice trembling between fear and faith. Vance stood up, walked over to her, and dropped to one knee, looking straight into her eyes. "Your mother will live, Lily. The donor is on the way." He took her small hand in his own. "You taught me something important, Lily," he said, his voice soft but confident. "Courage knows no age, and hope can light even the darkest places. This journey doesn't end here. We will continue to fight for every veteran family and for everyone who has given so much to this nation." As he walked down the hallway to the room where Lily's mother was waiting to tell her the news, he squeezed the girl's hand one last time. "Promise me one thing, Lily." "What, Mr. Vice President?" "When you grow up, remember this day. And when you see someone in need, stop your motorcade, no matter where you're going." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded with a determination that seemed so familiar. The same determination that had made her stand on the street corner with the cardboard sign on that fateful day. "I promise," she whispered. The doors of the ward opened and a doctor came out with a wide smile. "Mr. Vice President, the mother is ready for surgery. The donor kidney is a perfect match. We will begin in an hour as soon as the transplant surgeon arrives from Boston." Vance nodded and turned to his chief of staff. "I want this story to be an example for the entire country, not because I am in it, but because it involves thousands of Americans who came together overnight to save one life. That is the real America." The chief of staff, who had recently been doubtful, now looked at his boss with new respect. "You changed this country overnight, sir. Across America, millions of people waited with bated breath for news, their hearts united in a shared hope, their worldviews forever changed by a little girl with a cardboard box and a man who dared to stop the motorcade. And in the skies above America, a military plane was racing with precious cargo on board. Living proof that even in the darkest times, hope flies at the speed of light when people unite for a common goal."